So you are Bob McKeon. You
Yeah.
are a long-term resident of McCauley. How long have you lived here?
I moved it in 77.
And what led you here?
I was part of a community or group that intentionally wanted to move into the neighborhood and get involved and learn, and we stayed.
Why did you stay?
It's challenging, interesting. It's possible to make a contribution to the building of the community. There's a lot of interesting people that you meet, live with, and work with.
And have you been personally affected by any of the social issues in the neighborhood that are a result of issues concerning housing and homelessness?
Sure. I think anybody who lives in the neighborhood, and particularly in the south part of the neighborhood, I mean, there certainly are issues. Maybe things like garbage piling up behind the houses and garages. Some of the addressing issues like the sex trade in this neighborhood. I mean, you can't deny there are issues, and we do encounter them. Yeah.
And how do you deal with them?
I think this neighborhood has been really effective in that we've been able to organize. And on our good days, we've been able to work together and often work with the people that could be seen as simply the problem. I mean, a really good example is maybe 25 years ago, this really was the center of a lot of street prostitution. And folks in the neighborhood worked with a lot of different groups. And some of the neighborhood people talked with the women in the sex trade, talked with lots of people, and began to set up supports and services and began to address it positively. And being able to address it positively, I think, has made a real difference. To simply live here and not be able to address it positively would be incredibly difficult and frustrating.
What are some of the organizations that you've been with that have dealt with housing issues?
We're doing the interview in one of the houses of Inroads Housing Cooperative, which is one way where people have come together to help provide their own housing in an affordable way. I was part of the very beginnings and start of inner city housing, and the first 4 or 5 houses were in this neighborhood. But it was a sense that the neighborhood was diverse. There was a need for safe, affordable, secure housing, and that we had the capacity to do it. And it was primarily neighborhood residents, some faith communities, and a couple of the agencies worked together to put that housing in place. And that housing has been successfully run now almost 30 years, at least the first projects.
What are some things that other neighborhoods could perhaps learn from McCauley's example?
Is to overcome fears and stereotypes. Talk to each other. Try to talk to the people that are involved. Try to find ways of talking with the homeless themselves or the folks on the street that we meet. I mean, obviously we say homeless, and obviously we say low-income people that are in various forms of supportive housing. Try to build on relationships. Try to build on experience. And as a neighborhood, talk to each other. If there are real issues, address them very quickly. For example, it's possible here, and especially since we're so close to mustard seed, a lot of garbage can pile up very, very quickly. So you're on it. I mean, you address the issues as they emerge, and you deal with it straight up, and it works for everybody.
How can social housing make a neighborhood better?
If social housing can be well run, we can have a diversity of population in the community. Certainly in McCauley, some of the folks in social housing are really some of the contributors to community life. Some of the folks in inner city housing have helped with the newspaper, the community newspaper, for example, or helped put on community events. So I think it can be a base of getting wider participation in the neighborhood, to get inclusion with some of the issues, and I think it's a good education for all of us that we live in the neighborhood.
Why does housing need to be a citywide responsibility?
Simply that the traditional sense that it's a small number of inner city neighborhoods will provide the housing and meet the need is utterly unrealistic and not the way to the future. We have a city plan, 10-year plan to eliminate homelessness. And so far over 3,000 folks have been housed, right? And the vast majority of those have been housed in neighborhoods around the city, mostly not in single identifiable projects. The answer to providing adequate housing for those in need has to involve every neighborhood in the city. It's simply impossible that a small number of inner city neighborhoods can carry that.
Mm-hmm. And how would you address people's fears in terms of someone finds out that a social housing project might be coming into their neighborhood and they have concerns about it? How would you address the fears that they might have?
I mean, I think one thing they can do is to talk to folks like neighborhoods like McCauley and just talk to some of our stories and histories. I mean, I've lived here over 35 years. My daughters have been raised here. I mean, it's an interesting, challenging place. I think they got to talk to the people involved.
What does a caring community mean to you?
I think it's one that is open and welcoming to simply beyond our own usual group. I mean, there's two parts to your question. One is welcoming. That means an openness or a welcome. And the other side is a community. That we're not just isolated individuals, that we're connected with each other. And I think McCauley is so diverse, it's an interesting example how you can have a real mix of folks build an effective community that can accomplish the things it needs to do.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add that I haven't already touched upon?
Well, I'm kind of excited by this whole project that maybe we can build on the experience in neighborhoods like McCauley to open up a citywide conversation, and that we can be participants in that discussion.